You are. If you don't love yourself first, your life will punish you for it relentlessly, quietly, and without mercy. Every day you wake up tired, unfocused, resentful, you are. And confused is evidence that you have been neglecting the most basic responsibility you have, treating yourself as someone worth caring for. This is not about comfort, you are. Ego or shallow self-esteem. This is about survival, because when you don't value yourself, you tolerate chaos, you accept disrespect, and you drift toward weakness, you are. And life does not reward weakness. Loving yourself first means you stop lying to yourself. You are. You stop pretending that things will magically improve while you continue destructive habits. You stop blaming your past, your parents, society, or fate. You are. You face the truth your life is the direct result of what you repeatedly do. That realization is heavy, but is also liberating. You are. Because the moment you accept responsibility for yourself, you gain power. Power to change, power to build, power to endure. You are. Most people confuse self-love with indulgence. That is a lie. Real self-love is discipline. It is doing what is difficult now so that your future does not collapse. You are. It is waking up when you don't feel like it. It is controlling your impulses when no one is watching. It is choosing structure over chaos. You are. You don't love yourself by escaping discomfort. You love yourself by becoming someone capable of handling it. When you respect yourself, your standards rise. You are. You stop allowing people to waste your time. You stop saying yes when your soul is screaming no. You are. You stop seeking validation from those who have not earned the right to influence your life. Self-love builds boundaries, and boundaries create strength. Without them, you are. You are invaded by other people's expectations, emotions, and demands. With them, you become grounded, calm, and formidable. Look closely at your suffering. You are. Much of it comes from self-betrayal, from ignoring your intuition, from knowing what you should do and refusing to do it. Each time you betray yourself, you lose confidence. Each time you keep a promise to yourself, even a small one, you regain dignity. That dignity compounds. It changes how you walk, how you speak, how you decide. The world responds differently to someone who stands upright inside. Loving yourself first also means cleaning up your inner and outer world. You are. Order your room, order your schedule, order your habits. Chaos outside reflects chaos within. When your environment is disorganized, your mind follows. You are. Structure is not oppression, it is freedom. It frees your energy for growth instead of survival. You cannot build a meaningful life on a foundation of disorder. You are. Do not underestimate the power of small, consistent actions done with self-respect. One disciplined hour a day can change the direction of your entire life. One honest conversation can restore your integrity. One decision to stop tolerating what weakens you can transform your future. You don't need motivation. You need commitment. Motivation fades, commitment remains. When you love yourself first, you stop chasing approval. You stop shrinking to fit into places that cannot hold your potential. You become selective, focused, calm. And that calm is dangerous in the best way. Because it cannot be manipulated. You are no longer desperate, and desperation is what ruins lives. Life becomes meaningful when you decide that you matter enough to take care of yourself properly. Not perfectly, properly. With effort, with truth, with courage. When you do that, something remarkable happens. Your confidence grows, your relationships improve, your direction sharpens. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Love yourself first, not with words, with actions, with discipline, with responsibility, and watch how your life is forced to transform. Because it has no other choice. Self-respect is the foundation of discipline, boundaries, and meaning. Without it, your life quietly collapses while you pretend everything is fine. Most people don't fail because they lack talent, opportunity, or intelligence. They fail because they do not treat themselves as someone worth taking seriously. And when you don't take yourself seriously, neither does life. You drift, you delay, you tolerate what weakens you, and you wonder why nothing ever truly changes. This is not bad luck. This is the natural consequence of living without self-respect. Self-respect begins the moment you stop lying to yourself. It starts when you admit that your habits shape your future, that your excuses are costing you years, and that no one is coming to save you. This realization is uncomfortable, but it is necessary because discipline does not appear out of motivation. It is born from respect. You do difficult things not because you feel inspired, but because you believe your future matters. When you respect yourself, you get up on time. You finish what you start. You do not negotiate with weakness. You understand that every small act of discipline is a vote for the person you are becoming. Without self-respect, boundaries collapse. are. You say yes when you should say no. You allow people to drain your energy, cross your limits, and define your worth. You fear rejection more than self-betrayal. You are, and slowly your confidence erodes. But when you respect yourself, boundaries become non-negotiable. You no longer explain yourself to those who do not listen. You are. You no longer tolerate disrespect disguised as honesty. You protect your time, your focus, and your peace, not because you are selfish, you are, but because you understand that your life is finite and valuable. Self-respect is also the root of meaning. Meaning is not found in comfort or pleasure, you are. It is found in responsibility. A life without responsibility feels empty, no matter how easy it becomes. When you respect yourself, you are. You choose responsibility voluntarily. You carry weight. You aim at something higher than short-term relief. You accept that suffering is inevitable, you are. But pointless suffering is optional. You choose the suffering that strengthens you instead of the suffering that destroys you. Look at the chaos in your life honestly. You are. Disorganization, procrastination, broken promises, emotional reactivity, these are not personality traits. They are symptoms of a deeper issue. You are the refusal to live with self-respect. When you clean up your environment, structure your time, and bring order to your inner world, you are. You send yourself a powerful message, I matter. And once that message is internalized, your behavior changes automatically. You are. You stop sabotaging yourself because sabotage no longer makes sense. Self-respect means doing what is right even when no one is watching. Especially then, you are. It means keeping promises to yourself, even small ones, because each broken promise weakens your character. Confidence is not something you think into existence, you are. It is something you earn through repeated acts of integrity. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, truth over comfort, effort over avoidance, you are. You strengthen your spine, and a person with a strong spine can withstand life. Many people chase confidence, love, and purpose, but avoid self-respect. You are. That is backward. Respect comes first. When you respect yourself, you no longer chase validation. You become selective. You slow down. You listen, you are. You act with intention. And the world responds differently to someone who knows their worth, not arrogantly, but firmly. Do not confuse self-respect with harshness. You are. It is not about self-hatred or perfection. It is about honest care. You don't let a child destroy their future, and you shouldn't let yourself do it either. You are. Real self-respect is compassionate but uncompromising. It says you can do better, and you will. Your life will not change through hope alone. You are. It will change the moment you decide to treat yourself as someone worth saving, someone worth building, someone worth fighting for. Discipline will follow. You are. Boundaries will solidify. Meaning will emerge. And once self-respect takes root, everything else has no choice but to rise with it. You are. Loving yourself means taking responsibility for your actions, habits, and future, because without responsibility, love is nothing more than a comforting lie. You are. Most people say they want a better life, but they refuse the one thing that makes a better life possible: ownership. They want confidence without discipline. You are. Growth without effort and change without sacrifice. That is not self-love. That is self-deception. Real self-love is demanding. It calls you to account. You are. It asks you to stand up, look honestly at your life, and admit that the direction you are heading is shaped by your daily choices. You are. Taking responsibility begins with the brutal recognition, not neutral. They are building you or destroying you every single day. You are. The way you spend your mornings, what you feed your mind, how you react under pressure, these are not small details. They are votes for the person you are becoming. You are. When you avoid responsibility, you become a victim of your impulses. When you accept it, you become the author of your future. That shift alone changes everything. You are. Loving yourself means you stop blaming the past for the present. The past may explain your wounds, but it does not excuse your refusal to heal. You are. Carrying resentment feels easier than carrying responsibility, but it costs you your future. Responsibility, on the other hand, you are, gives you something resentment never can control. The moment you say, "This is on me," you reclaim the power to act. And power, properly used, you are, is an act of self-respect. Your habits are where self-love becomes visible. Anyone can say they care about themselves, but your behavior tells the truth. You are. Do you keep promises to yourself? Do you choose what strengthens you over what distracts you? Do you build structure into your life or drift toward chaos? You are. Loving yourself means setting standards and living by them even when no one is watching. Especially then, you are. Because integrity is built in private long before it is tested in public. Responsibility also means accepting that your future is not a matter of luck. You are. it is a consequence. If you continue doing what you are doing now, you will get more of the same. That is not pessimism, it is reality. You are. Loving yourself means caring enough about tomorrow to change what you do today. It means sacrificing short-term comfort for long-term stability. You are. That sacrifice is not punishment. It is proof that you believe your life is worth the effort. Many people confuse self-love with self-indulgence. You are. They reward themselves for surviving instead of strengthening themselves to thrive. Indulgence feels kind in the moment, but it leaves you weaker. You are. Responsibility feels heavy at first, but it makes you capable, and capability is deeply satisfying. When you know you can rely on yourself, anxiety decreases. You are. Confidence grows, and your life becomes grounded instead of chaotic. Taking responsibility does not mean you become cruel to yourself. It means you become honest. You are. You stop pretending that your problems are caused only by other people. You stop waiting for motivation. You act because action is required. You are. You treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping, firmly, patiently, and with purpose. When you love yourself this way, your relationships change. You are. You stop demanding others fix what you refuse to address. You bring stability instead of neediness. You give from strength, not desperation. You are. Responsibility makes you trustworthy to yourself and to others. Your future is listening to what you do today. Every disciplined action is a signal that you care. You are. Every avoided responsibility is a vote for stagnation. Loving yourself means choosing to carry the weight of your life rather than letting it crush you. You are. Do that consistently, and your habits will align, your direction will sharpen, and your future will no longer be something you fear. You are, but something you are prepared to face. Order in your inner world creates power in your outer life, because a chaotic mind cannot build a meaningful future. You are. When your thoughts are scattered, your emotions uncontrolled, and your values unclear, your actions become weak and inconsistent. You react instead of decide. You are. You drift instead of aim. And then you wonder why life feels overwhelming, why progress feels impossible, and why confidence never lasts. You are. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. Disorder inside you produces disorder around you. Your inner world is the command center of your life. You are. If it is filled with noise, resentment, fear, and unexamined impulses, every decision you make will be compromised. You are. Power does not come from intensity or ambition alone. It comes from clarity, and clarity is born from order. When you take the time to sort your thoughts, you are. Define your values and confront your fears honestly, your actions gain direction. You stop wasting energy fighting yourself. Inner order begins with truth. You are. You cannot organize a lie. You must be willing to look at your flaws, your weaknesses, and your mistakes without flinching. Not to shame yourself, you are, but to understand yourself. Denial creates chaos because it hides the problem. Truth brings order because it reveals what must be addressed. You are. When you speak the truth to yourself, even quietly, your mind settles, confusion fades, the path forward becomes visible. You are. Discipline is the tool that maintains inner order. Without discipline, even the clearest values dissolve under pressure. Discipline is not punishment, it is structure. You are. It is the daily practice of aligning your actions with your intentions. When you wake up with purpose, organize your time, and act deliberately, you are. Your mind learns to trust you. That trust becomes confidence, and confidence grounded in order is real power. Emotional regulation is another pillar of inner order. You are. If your emotions control you, your life will be unstable. Anger, envy, anxiety, and resentment are not enemies, but if left unchecked, they dominate your decisions. You are. Inner order means you feel your emotions without becoming them. You pause, you think, you respond instead of react. You are. This self-control gives you an advantage in every environment. Calm is a form of strength that cannot be easily challenged. When your inner world is ordered, you are. Your outer world responds. Your speech becomes precise. Your posture straightens. Your decisions become consistent. People sense stability in you. You are. Opportunities appear because you are prepared to handle them. Chaos no longer pulls you in every direction because you have a center. You know what you stand for, you are, and that anchors you when life becomes difficult. Look at the state of your surroundings. Often external disorder mirrors internal confusion. You are. When you clean your space, structure your schedule, and simplify your commitments, you reduce mental noise. This is not trivial. You are. Small acts of order send a message to your mind you are in control. Over time, those acts compound, and the sense of power grows quietly but steadily. You are. Inner order also gives meaning to suffering. Life will test you regardless of how organized you are. Pain is inevitable. You are. But when your values are clear and your inner world is stable, suffering becomes purposeful. You endure not because you are forced to. You are. but because you have chosen a direction worth enduring for. That choice transforms hardship into strength. Power is not dominance over others. You are. It is mastery over yourself. And mastery begins inside. When you bring order to your thoughts, your habits, and your emotions, your actions gain force. You are. Your life gains direction, and the world inevitably responds. Create order within. You are. And you will discover a level of power that no external circumstance can take from you. When you stop abandoning yourself, your life is forced to rise. You are. Because the moment you stand with yourself, everything else must reorganize around that decision. Most people are not defeated by life. You are. They are defeated by their own constant retreat from responsibility, truth, and self-respect. They walk away from their values to avoid discomfort. You are. They silence their conscience to gain approval, and slowly, almost invisibly, they become strangers to themselves. That is self-abandonment. You are. And it is the quiet root of misery. Self-abandonment happens in small moments. You know what you should do, and you don't do it. You know what you should say? You are. And you stay silent, you feel disrespected, and you tolerate it. Each moment seems insignificant, but together they form a pattern of betrayal. Over time, you are. That pattern destroys confidence. You stop trusting yourself. And when you cannot trust yourself, life becomes unstable because you have no solid ground to stand on. You are. Stopping self-abandonment begins with courage, the courage to tell yourself the truth. Not the comfortable truth, but the necessary one. The truth about your habits. You are. Your relationships, your excuses. Truth is painful at first because it demands change, but it is also the only thing strong enough to pull you out of chaos. You are. When you face the truth, you reclaim authority over your life, and authority is power. When you stand by yourself, discipline emerges naturally. You are. Discipline is not something you force through willpower alone. It is something that grows when you decide you are worth protecting. You stop skipping what matters. You are. You stop negotiating with weakness. You keep promises to yourself because breaking them now feels unacceptable. That single shift, honoring your own word, you are, begins to reorder your entire life. As self-abandonment ends, boundaries appear. You stop allowing others to define your worth or drain your energy. You are. You no longer over-explain, overgive, or overextend. You choose alignment over approval. This is not arrogance. It is self-respect. You are. And self-respect changes how people treat you because people respond to clarity and strength, even if they don't always like it. You are. Your emotional life also stabilizes when you stop abandoning yourself. Much of anxiety comes from internal conflict, knowing what is right and doing the opposite. You are. When your actions align with your values, that conflict dissolves. You become calmer, not because life is easy, but because you are no longer at war with yourself. You are. Inner peace is not passivity, it is coherence. Life responds quickly to someone who stands upright internally. Your posture changes, your voice steadies. You are. Your decisions become deliberate. Opportunities that once overwhelmed you become manageable because you are no longer fragmented. Even setbacks feel different. You are. They no longer define you, they instruct you. You learn instead of collapse. Stopping self-abandonment does not make life painless. It makes it meaningful. You are. You will still face resistance, loss, and uncertainty, but now you face them as someone who can be trusted by yourself. And that trust is everything. You are. It is the foundation of confidence, resilience, and growth. When you finally decide to stay with yourself, to act with integrity, to speak honestly, you are. To live deliberately, your life has no choice but to rise, because a person who does not abandon themselves becomes anchored, and an anchored life does not drift. You are. It moves forward steadily, powerfully, and with purpose.